Okay, so filming this as a bit of an informative video to show a DIY joystick. So my VKB decided to give up, hence why the mount and everything is over there ready for a new joystick. But waiting for the Black Friday sale to start at Wing, which is today. But in the meantime, I saw Jake's VR Flight Club network and took inspiration from him to create a PVC joystick and mount it to something. So I've just used a bit of, it's actually a leftover jig. This was a connector for external, I've forgotten what you call it now, is it a 110 volt? An old socket that we wasn't using, so I used that to mount the rubber clasp to. And then obviously mount the PVC tube, which we had some leftover 40mm, and that allows it to have a movement and recentering, like so. And then I've just used some plumbing 90 degrees to then mount it up. That was just a piece of foam that I had lying around, cut it to a size to have like a palm rest. Not that you really need it anyway, but I thought it would be quite a nice addition. And then this little leathery bit I've just cable tied on is a bit of an afterthought, as I had some issues with the Quest 3 tracking in the game in DCS. So the settings I was using in the game were using that as a toggle, so you only press it and it gripped hold of the stick. Now it worked fine, but after like 2 seconds of being in sort of the same place, like if you're doing very small movements, it stopped tracking the controller. So to actually fix that, this has to be held down the whole time, and change the settings in DCS so that it doesn't toggle, that this has to be held down. I believe it's called the action button. And then, yeah, so I moulded the PVC pipe with heat, but not deep enough so that it presses that button down. So cable tying on this piece of leather allows it then to sit further in. I press that in now. It then holds that button in. And then you have a VR joystick. The issue is in DCS is trying to get the real life joystick lined up with the virtual joystick in the cockpit. So that is the main issue, but all you need to do is, before you put it in, I rest mine on top so that the button is not engaged, so that your virtual reality hand is shown in the game, and then just recenter the VR view whilst moving your head slightly back and forth until you line the virtual hand up with the joystick. Then once it's aligned, I will slot that in and it will grab hold of said stick. And to be honest, when it's actually in use, it is unbelievable the amount of detail and accuracy you get, because it is essentially a full-sized joystick. I've been mainly using it in the hind, and I've had the best flight experience, like smoothness and accuracy, using this over, say, my old VKB, just because how light it is, and you have so much like leverage on the whole stick, that it's really, really smooth with the small motions, hovering, really small, tight proximity landings. It all works absolutely perfect. But yeah, so the piping, I was going to glue it, but for adjustability, I've used plasterboard screws just to hold them together, and it's pretty sturdy. And I think it's cost me a total of about 12 quid, £12 to make, just out of stuff lying around the house. An old jig board, which obviously is obnoxiously big, but it is very stable on that. And yeah, I would and I will probably use it again at some point when I do make my own sim rig, which I'll replace this horrible desk and sort out this horrible cable management, since I decided to mount my throttle to my chair, and now I've got floating cables from my chair linked up under the desk to my computer. But yeah, I just thought I would put this out there. And also I'm going to put a link down below for Jake's VR Fight Club Network. I believe that's the name of his channel. And thank you for the inspiration, Jake. It has saved me not being able to fly since my joystick broke. So yeah, just put this video out there just for a bit of inspiration for people and a little more information on how to get it working properly. Okay, so here I am inside the Hind VR controller. So where my actual controller is now is sat about there. So when I first come in the cockpit, I think it's set like that. So I just move my head a little bit further back each time, and just see how you can move your head just slightly. It'll offset you in the cockpit, but if I set around there, then I put the controller in to the physical stick, so it's pressing the palm controller. Pardon me, I think I'm getting a bit of a cold. So now you'll see that you get really nice range of motion, exactly like the real thing. Like, you can do really minimal inputs. So just an example of how stable it is to fly the Hind, and everyone knows that the Hind is not the easiest thing to hover, but I can hover this, dare I say it, better than with a physical like proper joystick. That it just blows my mind, honestly, that you can do this with a VR controller. All you need to do is like make something physical. Again, I'll be linking below Jake's channel. His is a really nice full setup for both controllers. So I'm currently using my my Warthog throttle, just because I've got all the controls and extra buttons that I need. But Jake has a really good workaround with his, using a USB numpad for his kneeboard, and he's also added to the joystick, I believe they're like macro USB keys, like a strip of 4, and he's attached them to the physical stick and routed the cable down the stick, etc. Just so you have more buttons on the joystick, because the one issue that you have is a lack of buttons that you're able to bind on the Oculus controllers themselves. So I've managed, so my main helo is the Hind and the KA-50. Now I can fly the Hind and utilise all its weapons and flares, etc. So let's go. Oh, wrong button. If I
turn on weapons,
get Petrovich to turn the weapons on. I do that. I'm wondering if... Yeah, so I'm currently putting out some flares, and that was the use of the B button on my Oculus Quest controllers. So how I found to bind them with being on the stick, so if the best thing to do is attach the controller to the stick so it's in motion now, then go into your adjust controls, and then I have A as designate target, so that'll be using Petrovich to fire missiles. A B would be my countermeasures, and trigger is release weapons. So they're the 3 buttons that I have bound in the Hind. But yeah, it works absolutely flawlessly now. So I did have some issues, like I said earlier on in the video, with losing tracking. So when you're flying like this and you're doing really small inputs, like over a long flight, so if you're flying in a straight line for a while, it would lose track and your hand would disappear off the stick. Then when you move it, it would come back, but you're not actually hold of the stick inside the cockpit, so you would end up having flight control issues. So I was having to constantly be like moving the joystick constantly, even flying in a straight line, just to keep the controller tracking. But I will show you the setting in one moment. I'll just show you a quick landing with this setup. So everyone knows behind is a fat bird and she does not want to hover. She likes being fast. I'll just bring it down into a nice slow state. And that is like the easiest it has ever felt, to bring the hind slow down, get her into a bit of a hover, and just, I'm actually blown away by all this. I never thought it would be this accurate and smooth. The only issue is you don't have a trimmer, but to be honest, with the length of the PVC pipe and the lightness of, like, over that length, the rubber is really stiff at the bottom, and it feels like it's going to be a really stiff what do you call it, cyclic, but it's not, it really isn't, and it's really easy to hold a certain attitude with the stick. There are some aircraft that it's not going to work well with, obviously the F-16, and some of the warbirds, like the Spitfire doesn't like it. The VR hand inside that cockpit goes a bit, I don't know, skew whiff. It's like pointing the wrong way when you grab hold of the flight stick, and I don't know why, but yeah, there we have it. And then just slide it off. It's pretty cool, and it does give you the option now with that setting changed. I can still use my mouse. I can point at things with the VR, so you can pick and choose whenever you want. But I will show you the main option that I did have the issue with on the controller. So under VR, it was this. I didn't have this ticked. So hand interaction only when palm grip is obtained. So that would be... Oh, my controllers aren't showing up now. Perfect. But yeah, the index finger, the like side palm button, turned it into a toggle if you don't have that ticked. So if you have it ticked like so, hand interaction only when that is obtained. So that means pressing and holding the side trigger on the controller. And once that's ticked, then yeah, you are squared away, and the tracking should be fine with the controller. Like I say, I'm going to presume everyone's going to have different experiences with the tracking, but it's well worth a shot. If you've got like a tenner, go to your DIY store, get some piping, etc. Find stuff in the garage or shed. You'll be squared away and ready to go. Well, yeah, thanks for watching, and thanks to Jake for his inspiration until I get a new joystick. Cheers.